What? Why are you looking at me like that? Really? Okay, fine. I'll go outside. As you can see, I've been a little bored during quarantine, so I've been going on long walks by myself from time to time. It's my way of escaping from what's going on these days. There's a lot of history in my neighborhood, even my own personal family history. I've been discovering parts that I never knew existed, as well as revisiting parts that are special to me, like where my grandpa's house was, for instance. Although it isn't here anymore, it's definitely a place that holds so many memories. My social distance walks have also made me think about my family and how we came here to Staten Island. Hi, I'm Laura, and I'm an American with an Irish and Italian background, and this is my family origin story. My family has been here for many generations, so it's a little difficult to find an exact story of how we came to America, especially on my mom's side. Apparently we go as far back as one of the first English settlers in the 1600s. My family is huge. My great-uncle even made a book that lists every possible member from the 1600s to the early 1990s. I wasn't even born yet when he finished. It's honestly very overwhelming to look through, so I'm just going to stop for now. So, instead of an immigration story, we have a really cool migration story from my grandpa of how he came to New York from Louisiana. He was one of 12 children, and I actually just found out that his mother had passed away in the last flu epidemic that we had in 1920. So, my grandfather kind of had to be raised in an orphanage for a little bit because his father couldn't take care of all those kids at once. In the 1930s, he and his brother hitchhiked their way to New York City with barely any money. Yet, they still managed to look sharp. He loved to tell about how they would ride the back of trains and how when he got his first job in New York, he didn't even know what a telephone was. He met my grandmother, an Irish city gal, and after jobs at nightclubs, he became an FDNY firefighter, eventually becoming captain. They had 8 children while living in a railway apartment in Manhattan. Could you imagine? My uncle, the oldest, moved out to the magical land of Staten Island, and then the rest of my mom's family followed in 1963, all the way out to the neighborhood where I live today, the end of New York City. They loved how much space there was here, and it was very much needed for a family their size. And so my grandparents' house became the center for many family events for decades. I miss it for sure. My dad's family history is also a little blurry. There was always something about an ancestor being found as an orphan in the town of Caserta, Italy, and then being named after the town. My last name is Casertano, which means from Caserta, but then I found out that wasn't really the case. But my great-grandparents did immigrate here from Italy and Sicily in the early 1900s through Ellis Island. I even saw one of their names on the wall when I visited in 8th grade. For some reason, my dad's family seemed to stop speaking Italian once they came here. I don't even think my grandparents spoke it. I always wondered why, and I even took Italian in college to sort of fill that gap. So I'll also be focusing on how my dad's family settled in Staten Island instead. They lived in Brooklyn for a few years, and they actually moved to Staten Island the same time my mom's family did. New York is such a small world that I also found out that my mom's parents lived in the same building complex as my grandma at the same time in Long Island City. Anyway, my grandpa was already from Staten Island, and so he had family living here already, so why not move back? And so they moved to Oakwood Heights. My grandpa was a carpenter in the Navy and became an electrician afterwards. How scary and cool is this photo of my grandpa working on one of the Twin Towers? My dad, uncles, and even some cousins actually became electricians themselves, and they've had some crazy experiences. My grandparents loved square dancing, of all things, and they even opened a square dancing apparel store in Staten Island. My grandpa was always coming up with something inventive and creative. That creativity seems to run in my family on both sides. I did this family tree poster as a project in the 1st grade, and it has been hanging up in my house ever since. It shows how big my family is on both sides. It's truly amazing how the choices of our ancestors can create so many lives. Like mine. Even though I don't know the exact full story of why and how my families came to America, or even where exactly we came from, I do know how they ended up in Staten Island and how they created a life for themselves and future generations. And that's what I connect with. And family is a very big part of my life. And even if some of it is a little bit of a mystery, it's why I'm here today. And that's what matters.
I am me and you are you.